Good afternoon from Australia. It's Sunday, the 6th of September, and I'm coming to you from the Gold Coast. My name is Nola, and I'm the founder of Serenidad Consulting, an international consultancy company that specializes in teaching people about excellence, positive personal power, and great leadership. And in that context, we provide consultancy services to any range of clients. You can see that on our website. We also provide peace negotiation services, dispute resolution and mediation, and we provide structured educational programs and these peace bites to support the wider education of people about positive personal power. Now, this is probably the last segment that I'm going to do on positional power on its own, and then next week I'm going to talk about positional power and personal power both used positively, and how that scenario actually creates improvement at a much greater level than most people realise. Today, what I want to talk about is positional power at the country level and whole of globe level. So basically, whole of humanity. And firstly, I'm going to give you an example of the bad use of positional power at a country. About 35 years ago, I was on an overseas trip to Southeast Asia with an Australian federal government client, and we had reason to go to one country and attend a formal cocktail party that was given by the Trade Commissioner, Australia's Trade Commissioner in that country. Now, unfortunately, at that time, there were a lot of things going on that were not right. And yes, we still have corruption and we still have dishonesty happening at an international level. Unfortunately, that's the way some people choose to operate. But this particular individual, in their positional capacity, in their position of power, was negotiating quite fraudulent deals and used the position of power that was held to leverage better outcomes that were of personal value. Now, that ended up being publicised. It was a lengthy amount of deceit and corruption that went on, but that's the sort of thing that happens when people don't use their positions of power constructively. Likewise, when you're in a country that is run by a dictatorship, for instance, or you're subjected to a very high level of control by the government that's in power, that is in reality a very bad use of positional power. What we need to have are democratic societies where the people who live on this earth, who belong to a nation state or a resident waiting to become a citizen, that they are part of that power structure, because each individual has their own personal power. And when we elevate somebody to a position of nation state positional power, and they have control over how that nation state is perceived, how the government is run, or they have the highest seat within government and can veto certain decisions, that's an incredibly strategic role to hold. And positional power in that context is so vitally important for the incumbent to understand. Too often, we see people who gain positions of power use and abuse their power. What we need to see is that people take on positions of power using a level of discernment before they make their decisions, erring on the side of factual caution before they make far-reaching decisions. Because after all, at a strategic level, their strategies that they employ and that they deliver for their nation states affect the whole of humanity because it's at a nation state level, and it's three-dimensional. So the strategic impact is far into the future. It's very wide across that country as well as those that are neighbouring. And it also goes through all layers of society. So every individual within that nation state is likely to and probably going to be impacted by their decisions. So positions of power at a country level, whilst people aspire to that and they think that, that might be the best position of power that they could have and the most important. Remember what I said last week about all positions are important, otherwise they wouldn't exist, but certain positions have greater influence and greater impact. Well, at a nation state level, and therefore impacting whole of humanity, multiple nation states, global impact, global footprint, we must have leaders in place who think about others before themselves, who think about the strategic impact of what they are doing and saying and enacting, and who also have an attitude of how will this be perceived in 50 or 100 years' time? Is what I'm doing now going to be of benefit into the long term? Forget about the amount of time the government is elected into power. If you've got the head of state of a particular nation, or you have an appointee such as a prime minister within, say, the Commonwealth, or you have a dictator who's self-appointed, the decisions that they make will impact far, far into the future. And we must, right now, starting 2020, make sure that the leaders that we have in power are the right ones who are going to consider whole of humanity impact and use their positions wisely, with discernment, and factually make decisions, not assumptions. Risk manage situations based on fact. I hope you have a really great week going forward. This is a spring in Australia. I know it's heading into the fall in the Northern Hemisphere. I wish everybody well as we work through still the COVID-19 implications, and I trust that we will have some form of vaccine that's available widely within the next 6 months, preferably. Have a great week. I will talk with you again next week. Please feel free to email us. Look out for our advertised educational programs which we're launching by Zoom. We'll be advertising in a number of ways.